Hey guys, it's Bree. I recently finished Nevernight by Kristoff, and I kind of wanted to talk about it. I've been keeping my eye out for Kristoff stuff since reading Illuminae, which you might remember from the BookTube SFF Awards. It's a co-authored book with him and Amy Kaufman. That's kind of like a revolution dystopian in space deal. And I wanted to read something on his own because I had very mixed feelings about Illuminae. I'll link my previous chat about that one somewhere in the description bar. And I found when you kind of go through the forum on the BookTube SFF Awards that you either really, really liked Illuminae or you really, really didn't. It seemed like there was not a whole ton of middle ground, and that to me is of course a point of intrigue. So when I found a copy of Nevernight, I did pick it up. This is one of Kristoff's solo works, and it's the first in a series. The book is about 400 pages, has some schnazzy maps, which, let's face it, if you like SFF enough to be here, you probably love your maps. It is, I believe, in the YA kind of category of books. And it follows a 16-year-old girl named Mia who has basically started to try to gain entry into a church of assassins. They follow an outlawed god named the Maw and kill in her name and for her purposes. Mia in particular is not necessarily motivated by her devout faith so much as she is motivated by revenge. Her father had tried to lead a coup and was put down as a traitor, hung in front of everyone. Her mother was then locked up and imprisoned, and Mia was set, basically by chance, managed to get away to live on the streets. The story is split basically between two different timelines. There's Mia as like a 12-year-old girl who is out on the streets and alone and dealing with the aftermath of her family's upset. And then there's Mia as a 16-year-old going to this essentially boarding school for teenage assassins. And I find myself having some mixed feelings about this one. I'm going to start off with talking about Mia, and then we'll talk a little bit about the plot and the setting and the narrative tone, because I have things to say on a lot of this book. First off, Mia is at times a very interesting character and at times very predictable. I will say the entire setup of the story is very cliche. I won't be too nitpicky about that because that in and of itself doesn't bother me. As far as I'm concerned, if you're going to do something and do it well, it doesn't matter if you're using the cliche because you're adding something to it anyway. Mia is, however, kind of your typical, like, headstrong, I have to do this morally ambiguous thing kind of girl. She's, of course, very clever, very skilled at what she's doing. She gets herself in trouble. To me, Mia doesn't become interesting until about midway through the book. You find out how exactly it is that she's been so kind of fearless, which you find out is not something that's internal to her. You find out more about these kind of magical powers that she has and where they're sourced from. And that to me is interesting. She gathers her power from the darkness in a world where there's never night. They have 3 suns, and there's only one couple hours a year where there is actual darkness. And that's interesting. More interesting, I think, is the way that it affects her in combination with her kind of emotional history. There's you find out that, like I said, her fearlessness, I should say, is not internal to her. And when that external pressure that makes her so is taken away, she becomes much more vulnerable. And I think that that's the part where Kristoff really shines with her character. aside from that, I think she's pretty unremarkable. The plot, I think, is really, really slow for the first half of the book. It's set up so that you have the split timelines, and it just takes a lot of time for both of them to build. You really don't see a ton of action until like 200 pages in, and even then, the action is there primarily to be like, and we're at this really dangerous school, look how dangerous it is, as opposed to actually moving the plot forward, which is fine the first couple times, but after the like fourth or fifth time that a big event happens solely for the purpose of illustrating how dangerous the setting is, it kind of loses its impact for me. Like I said, it picks up about midway through the book, and I did think that there was some interesting plot twists that he puts in, but it has for me at least, it had a really slow build, particularly in combination with the way that he kind of portrays Mia at the start. It's kind of one of those things where the timing of both happens at the same time, and it just starts to pick up. It feels like it's really dull until midway through. As far as Kristoff's writing style, this was one of the things that I found to be really, really interesting. And I noticed two things in particular. One, he is definitely the source of the sassy comments in Illuminae. He does the same thing in here where he puts like footnotes in where the narrator kind of says offhand sassy things that he doesn't want to put in the text. For me, that's kind of a turnoff because I feel like unless you're making your narrator an actual character, it's not really worth it. In this case, for the rest of the book, the narrator's just your typical omniscient kind of third-party narrator. And so to me, that just never really sits well. Like, if you're going to do something like Jonathan Stroud, where you build in a character who's actually also the narrator and is actually also kind of spunky, then that fits more for me. The random offhand comments don't really do it, as far as I'm concerned. The other thing is he's really got some flowery language going on. Everything is being partnered with some sort of simile or metaphor. Not necessarily a bad thing. I just tend to prefer a little bit more direct writing. To me, there's a distinct line between descriptive and like overly flowery, and he kind of crosses that line occasionally. It gets better as the pacing gets a little bit better because he has to kind of go more for action as opposed to description. But to me, that winds up being a bit of a toss-up. So like I said, mixed feelings about this one. I would be interested to see if he ever does an adult novel, what he does. If you know if Jay Kristoff actually has already done an adult novel, I'd be really, really interested to pick that up. I think what I'll wind up doing is in the next couple of months picking up one of Amy Kristoff's solo works and seeing how that compares to Nevernight as well as to Illuminae. Kind of give myself a really good feel for both of them. One, to also enjoy stories, but to kind of break down my thoughts about the pair of them writing together. That being said, this is total popcorn. Like, you can't go wrong, I think, picking up a assassin's revenge story, right? It's one of those things that you're going to be able to read really quickly and will probably get some enjoyment out of. If you're being, like me and kind of a nitpicky person, you're going to find flaws in it. But if you're just picking up something for an afternoon read of fun, can't go wrong with this, I really don't think. So if you have read Nevernight, let me know what you think of it. If you have any suggestions for stuff of Kristoff's to read that is maybe a little bit more streamlined and a little bit less flowery or commenty, I'd be really interested to see what he does that's perhaps in a more adult vein. But you know the drill. Like, comment, subscribe. Tell me what you think of it. And I hope you're having a fantastic reading week. I'll talk to you later. Bye.